Hi, folks. Welcome to a special edition of Defiance Daily. I am your host, Miles Taylor, and we are expecting that Donald Trump is going to take the airwaves sometime soon here to do an address to the nation. We think that's going to happen from the Oval Office, could be from somewhere else in the White House. We're about to find out soon. The president's supposed to speak live to the nation at 9 p.m. As usual, those things start a little bit later than that. And so we'll see when the president comes on live. But until then, let's talk a little bit about what we may or may not hear from the president tonight. Now, Donald Trump's preview of the conversation this evening when he was asked by reporters was basically that his message tonight was going to be, and these are his words, not mine, we inherited a mess. And we've done a great job. That's what he's intending to speak about tonight. And we will go live to Trump when he delivers that message. But let's just break that down for a moment. We inherited a mess, and we've done a great job. That doesn't exactly sound like the message of someone who really thinks they are doing well. It sounds defensive. It sounds like someone is a year into the second term of his presidency and still keen to point fingers backwards at his predecessor because things aren't going that well if cleanup is still taking a year. Now, the White House is continuing to express that this pre-holiday speech from the Oval Office or from the White House is intended to be celebratory for the president to notch his wins while he's been in office. But even his own supporters seem to be suggesting otherwise, at least when it comes to the economy. In fact, his own supporters, his own networks that laud him, like Fox News, know what the American people know, which is that the economy is in the gutter. And remember, last week, when Donald Trump was speaking in Pennsylvania at a rally, remember what his message was to all of us before the holiday season. His message was, look, if your pocketbook is hurting, just give fewer gifts. His comment was, kids don't need that many dolls. They just need one or two dolls. So just cut back on the gifts. Give fewer toys. In fact, he suggested giving children one or two pencils. Merry Christmas from Donald Trump. One or two pencils. Well, look, like I said, that's not even lost on Donald Trump's supporters in the media. Take a listen as Fox News skewers Donald Trump today on the economy and his approval ratings.
The president has a big task ahead of him because the truth is that many people aren't feeling a strong economy. I mean, he's getting record low numbers, around 36% approval when it comes to the economy. You're also seeing a lot of everyday Americans, frankly, struggling. Still credit card balances up there near all-time highs. So I'd like to see some semblance of compassion for everyday Americans who maybe just simply aren't feeling the exuberance that the president has alluded to over and over again. He's giving himself an A+++. I'm not sure many Americans would feel the same.
Be focused on the economy, and maybe he will weave in some foreign policy too after that blockade of sanctioned oil tankers off of Venezuela.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Look at this, got a new poll, and it shows that Trump's approval rating is down to 39%, down 2 points from earlier this month.
The economy is in the gutter, and Fox News cannot avoid pointing out that Donald Trump's numbers are also in the gutter. I think it was really fitting, though, that Fox News reporter pointed out that people, even Trump's own supporters, are looking tonight for a semblance of compassion. The president's speaking live now. We'll go to him and we'll talk on the back end.
They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murders, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There's never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war, they caused mayhem, they caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president. We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%, airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are just some of the efforts that we have underway. You will see in your wallets and bank accounts in the new year. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interest to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward, and I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation. And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, trumprx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower costs. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich, and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody, or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation has stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
Tonight, the President of the United States in that primetime address making this year-end pitch.
He didn't. Okay, I'm going to go on here.
Well, I just have to say, I got some friends joining the conversation right now. We've got Maritsa Georgiou here, famed journalist. And we've got Waj Ali joining for the conversation. Friends, I want to jump into this with you and react to the president's address. Let me just say at the top end, though, flat out, I mean, I was watching that live with both of you. I think that was one of the worst presidential addresses I've ever seen, actually. It was stunted. It was bizarre. It was defensive. He seemed desperate to convince a worried country that they're better off than they actually are. Like a lot of Trump addresses, it was littered with lies. As I was watching it, Waj, I thought of you because it kind of felt like I imagined you saying something like this was a poor man's State of the Union address. It was like a snack size fast food State of the Union, just packed with saturated fat. So maybe, Waj, I'll go to you first. Did I capture your voice right there?
Miles, shut up. Why are you talking like that? You sound gay. I'm the greatest president of all time. This is the greatest address of all time. I'm going to talk like I have to go pee and I can't hold it in and I'm snorting cocaine and everything's fine. Turkey prices went down. Grocery prices went down. I'm the greatest president of all time. And if you don't like it, you're gay. And I hate all the immigrants, but come to the World Cup. And I took care of the criminals, but I just pardoned Sisi and the ex-president of Honduras. And everything's great and everything's fine. It's totally normal. I'm an old man yelling at clouds and I just have my pants around my ankles and I'm gonna hide my right palm, and if no one who likes me, they're gay, but I love everybody. Thank you.
I think Maritza's peeing her pants right now. Maritza, I want your reaction to Waj's reaction to Donald Trump.
Sorry.
I mean, a little bit. I mean, I wasn't ready for that, but I appreciated it. Let me just say, my co-host Jon Tester, I think, is going to join us here in a moment. He's lost power today because of bad weather. I left thinking, what was the purpose of this, right? I mean, how many of us wondered, is he going to announce an invasion of Venezuela or some kind of bigger escalation there involving Venezuela? Instead, it just sounded like kind of rambling in one of his campaign style speeches at a rally. And I mean, he just kept saying these things that, I could fact check immediately. I mean, right away, gas prices, nowhere in the country are gas prices below $2 right now. I just double checked. AAA says the lowest in the country is $2.34. He's talking about prices are down. Americans know what they're paying at the store.
That's
and
right.
to continue to go on and talk about how tariffs are good, and because of all of these tariffs, we get to give money back. Well, again, who's paying the tariffs? It's the importers passed on to the consumers. So that's part of the reason our prices are not down. I just left thinking, like, what was the point to this? And hitting on so many buzzwords. I mean, my goodness, if I had one of my State of the Union bingo cards, I think I would have blacked out the card, right? I mean, we heard about trans stuff. We heard about tariffs. We heard about, invaders and sending from asylums and prisons, all of the quote unquote hits. And again, I just don't understand what the purpose of this primetime address was, especially since the primetime address does not hold the same kind of weight it used to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah. And look, if you're going to do it, bring some gravitas to it. I mean, look, Waj, I think you captured it as well as Saturday Night Live is probably going to capture it this weekend, which it was look, Donald Trump does stream of conscious rallies all the time, and he gets mocked for it. But this is like a speechwriter tried to channel it and write down the stream of conscious thing as if it were a speech. Right. But then
it was, in all seriousness, I actually fact checked him in real time. It's my old Al Jazeera America stream training where you watch and multitask, and lie after lie, and after a while I just stopped because I said this reminded me of this great scene from The Simpsons where Abraham Simpson, there's a photo of him in the newspaper, old man yells at cloud, and this was, but it's a commander-in-chief. And going back to the point, and I believe the co-host name is Maritsa. Did I get it right? I want to make sure.
Yeah, Maritsa, like pizza.
Maritsa. So it's usually, and this is why I think it's very, this was my big takeaway. If this is a Wednesday night address at 9 p.m., we're old enough to remember when the president addresses the nation and really the world as the commander-in-chief, it's something important. So I was expecting him to declare war and just do more lies about Venezuela and surrounding Venezuela, which is hilarious because I don't know how they've surrounded it because he doesn't know geography, but I digress, right? But what it was really in real time, what we saw, folks, was a weak man. This was a weak man, and this was weakness manifested on live television. Because if things were going as well as they were going, if the economy was this good, if wages were this good, if America was great again, if he had stopped crime, you would not have had Donald Trump in such a deranged, manic way kind of yell at the American public for 20 minutes, right? Strength is revealed in its action, right? We would be calm. He would come out. He would gloat. He'd be like, "Things are great. Look at the job numbers. Look at the prices. I did it." This was a desperate man trying to con the American people and try to gaslight them. And what I did tweet is, you can bullshit people about vaccines, sadly. You can bullshit people about the 2020 election, sadly. You can't bullshit even MAGA about what's in their wallet and their bank account. That's the one thing no Democrat or Republican can. And that was his fatal flaw. He told them wages are going up. No, they're not. Here's saying egg prices have gone down. No, they haven't. As Maritsa said, gas prices, electricity has gone down. No, they haven't. And right now, folks, he's negative double digits on the economy, negative double digits on inflation, negative double digits now on foreign policy, negative double digits on immigration, negative double digits, Miles, on healthcare. And he's negative 30 points on something he didn't mention, the Epstein files.
Waj, nailed it on all of those. I'm going to play a clip, and on the back end, we're going to bring in our friend, former Senator Jon Tester. But the clip that I want to play is Donald Trump glitching out, because I think there's going to be two big things talked about tomorrow on this. One will be just how bizarre the vibes were in this presidential address. I mean, it was frenetic. It was all the things. And we'll look at that in a minute. And then, Waj, it'll be a focus on that, the defensiveness around the economy and a stream of lies that are disproven by what every American feels every day with their pocketbook. But let's watch that clip of Donald Trump glitching out.
System that really just took the wealth from people, and system that really just took the wealth from people.
So, but that's like how it felt the whole time. He was breathy and just lurching from one thing to the other. It was bizarre.
Wait, did he repeat himself, or was that a glitch? Was that a glitch?
That was a loop. We looped it.
But I do think, like, at one point he was trying to announce that there were more than 1,450,000 military service members getting checks, but he couldn't say it. He started to say 1,000. I mean, it was like you said, Miles. It was like someone wrote down the stream of consciousness, but he couldn't follow it because that's not how he operates. It's, hey, Senator.
So how's life? So this is an interesting conversation because we haven't had power for the last 4.5 hours because I live off
Well, the
grid.
president declared war, Senator, with every country in the world except for Venezuela. He announced that we're going to team up with Venezuela to make America great again. It was totally unexpected.
So we got a little different twist to what we anticipated. Well, yeah, I saw part of the clip, and to be fair, when the power came on, I texted Maritsa and said, hey, my juice is on now, so I can probably get on. Although it took me 10 minutes to get the computer running. But what I was going to say is that what the president doesn't understand is there's a real world going on out there where people have to buy groceries and people are getting hit by the inflation, the affordability issue. They see what he's doing to our allies. They see what he's doing to dictatorships around the world, embracing them. And I really think that people are starting to say, what the hell did I vote for here? What is really going on? And plus you add that to the fact that there is some issues about his capabilities mentally. I don't think he helped himself from what you just showed me on the clip and from what I just heard you guys talking about. But I haven't seen it. I didn't see the video.
Look, Senator, I mean, I think on the economy, this was an absolute nosedive of an address. I mean, as Waz and Maritsa pointed out earlier, the president kept saying things in a very defensive fashion. I think the best quote that I wrote down was in talking about prices. He rattled off a list of totally misleading statistics about price drops and then said, quote, everything is falling rapidly. No one can believe what's going on. Now, I mean, there's a deep irony to that last phrase. Nobody can believe what's going on, because most Americans would say it's not that they're so surprised at how cheap everything's getting. Nobody can believe what's going on when they go to the grocery store. I mean, it's like a daily conversation.
I wrote that down too because he said nobody can believe what's going on, and I thought, yeah, that's right. Nobody can believe what's going on.
Well, and Maritsa,
not in the way he thinks.
In like the same sentence, Donald Trump talks about how prices are falling rapidly, and then he goes into a deep defense of his tariffs, which are two things that live very poorly together in the same speech, to say prices are going down. And by the way, meanwhile, I'm slapping taxes on everything that are causing prices to go up, which his administration spent at least 6 months of this year denying that tariffs were taxes and increasing prices until things like coffee became so unaffordable. People were like, I've got to give up caffeine. And then the administration said, well, we'll just lower the tariffs on coffee. Oh, okay. Well, then you've admitted that tariffs are taxes, and that's why coffee is more expensive.
Favorite word is tariffs. I mean, you know what he did, and this is for the senator. I mean, he did say that, Senator. You missed it, but that's what he said.
Yeah,
my favorite word is tariff, and he's negative double digits on the trade war. And you know what he did was, it shows you, Miles, this man, this venality, this cruelty, this weakness, this fragility. You know, any other person would say, you know what, let me recalibrate. You know what, Americans, I know you're suffering. We've just come out from a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. And then you put a political spin on it. You know, my Democratic colleagues, they messed up, and I'm here to clean up the mess. And we're trying new things. And I hear you, and I hear your pain. And this is what we're going to do. What he did instead was, and I made a note of this, he literally doubled down on every single one of his failed policies. He was defensive throughout. And instead of saying, yeah, my trade war has been terrible, the tariff policy has been terrible, right? My immigration policy has been terrible, right? The big, beautiful bill, which is the largest wealth transfer in American history from not just the poor, but the middle class to the rich, which is going to gut Medicare folks next year, right? He defends it. He defends the big, beautiful bill. He defends the tariffs, defends the trade wars. And just politically, and I want to ask you this question, Senator, just politically, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers and you are consistently negative double digits on these issues, don't you just try to pivot?
A normal person would. I think that I don't think he believes the numbers. Number one, I don't think he understands, because I don't think he's ever bought a gallon of gas and put it in his car in his life. I don't think he's ever went to a grocery store. I don't think he's ever bought health insurance. I don't think he's ever done the things that normal working families do every day in this country. And the story would have been, if he would have said, you know what, the tariffs aren't working out so well, so we're going to recalibrate here. That would have been a hell of a story. I mean, because what those tariffs have done is basically taxed everybody with a national sales tax. And the truth is that if he would have changed direction, that would have been the change. The fact that he didn't say he was going to do anything different, really, did that surprise anybody?
Yeah, no. In fact, one thing that I want to play for you guys is a clip from earlier today on Fox News. Is we had a panel discussion of folks on Fox talking about what the president should discuss tonight. And they set a bar that I felt like was a very low bar for Donald Trump to clear. I want you to listen to what they had to say and tell me if you think tonight he cleared that bar.
The president has a big task ahead of him, because the truth is that many people aren't feeling a strong economy. I mean, he's getting record low numbers, around 36% approval when it comes to the economy. You're also seeing a lot of everyday Americans, frankly, struggling. Still credit card balances up near all-time highs. So I'd like to see some semblance of compassion for everyday Americans who maybe just simply aren't feeling the exuberance that the president has alluded to over and over again. He's giving himself an A+++. I'm not sure many Americans would feel the same.
Be focused on the economy, and maybe he will weave in some foreign policy too after that blockade of sanctioned oil tankers off of Venezuela.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Look at this, got a new poll, and it shows that Trump's approval rating is down to 39%, down 2 points from earlier this month.
Maritsa, let me start with you. Anything that you heard tonight that you think is going to take that approval rating north? And did Donald Trump clear that bar set for him about empathy and the economy?
Well, he didn't talk about how many pencils or dolls we should be buying our kids. So I guess that's an improvement. But no, I didn't hear anything about compassion or empathy. What I did hear was a lot of gaslighting about where prices stand, but also more of the blame game. We heard tonight again that immigrants are taking our jobs and they're the reason our housing costs are high. Yep. And out of the same mouth, you'll hear that immigrants are bilking the system, taking the money, and that they're just here leeching off of us and not working. So I don't know which one it is, but we heard more blame placed on the them versus us instead of actually talking about any economic woes. And when he did, he blamed somebody else.
Well, he seemed to blame. Well,
sorry, continue.
Well, I was just going to say he blamed men playing women's sports. I mean, that was it. Was
right.
One of the first 10 sentences of this address was, pointing to the previous administration and why we're in the position we're in. This was notionally supposed to be an address about the economy, the affordability crisis. Americans are suffering. And at the very beginning, Donald Trump says, look at how Biden got us into this mess. And there were men playing women's sports. What are you talking about?
It's the Maritsa. What she said is their bingo card, and if we had our bingo cards ready, he went off and checked all the boxes. Folks, there are more anti-transgender bills than there are transgender athletes in America as a result of the $200 million the GOP spent in the 2024 election, demonizing less than 1%. And fast forward a year, sadly, culture wars work. It swayed a lot of people, but now people are saying, you know what? I don't think I've ever even met a transgender person. I need to afford groceries. What is your solution? And what he also did, and I have a keen ear for this, the dog whistles were there in the final 2 minutes of his address, because instead of healing, he just went all out against immigrants. And instead of saying remigration, I don't know if you all caught it, he said reverse migration, which is just a synonym for, folks, I said this without any hyperbole, remigration, which has now been tweeted 3 times by the Department of Homeland Security and was just used in a synonym by the President of the United States of America, has emerged from white nationalist spaces. That's where the term was used. And now you heard reverse migration at a presidential address. You saw the DHS tweeted out 3 times. And that means ethnic cleansing of all brown and black and Asian people from America and Europe. And after he blamed all the immigrants, you know what he said? I mean, this is the best part. We're going to have the World Cup. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling the world we hate you foreigners, we hate you immigrants, you're doing dog whistles to white supremacists. But oh, by the way, come to America for the World Cup right as you
Unless
just
you're
announced
good at
earlier
soccer.
today. Yeah, as you announced earlier today that you're going to denaturalize citizens, and you just told our European allies next week you're going to do an audit of their 5 years of their social media posts coming to America. So make it make sense to me, Miles. You've been in does this make us safe? I don't know. Does it help
beat
the
me to
economy?
pointing that out. I mean, look, you know, the policy you just mentioned, the fact that they want to do deep background social media checks on everyone coming into the United States is something that the White House tried to foist upon us in the first administration. And, you know, look, I always say this, folks can eye roll at the notion that there was, you know, adults in the room in the first administration trying to keep Trump from doing illegal things. But on the long, long list of things that we were trying to keep Donald Trump from doing, one in the first term was, we don't think it's appropriate to be trying to do deep social media searches on people coming into the United States when it's not just about threats, when we know we've got a president who wants to make sure we're screening people for whether they agree with him or not. We've already seen that with immigrants. Folks noted at the top of the year, people were getting picked up and deported from the United States because of what they said about Gaza or protests that they showed up at. That was bad enough. But I mean, Waj, folks like you and I were saying, guys, listen, this is just the beginning. It's not just about people who've overstayed their visas and them looking up their history. They're going to start doing this to everyone, and they'll move that category just to people who want to come here and spend money and go to Disneyland. They want to be able to screen what their backgrounds are. So the president certainly left that out in bragging about coming to the World Cup. I'm not sure this is going to be a big celebratory event when we have that event here, if people think that their history is going to be searched and scraped. But, you know, to the bigger point, back on the economy, I will just say, amidst all of the lies on prices, it was also interesting to see him hit energy. And we can put the slide up here. Is, you know, Donald Trump seemed to project throughout this whole speech, bringing up things that were weaknesses and trying to portray them as strengths. But I mean, headline after headline in just the past week disproves everything Donald Trump was saying on the economy. So look, I go back to that Fox News hit. If they had set the bar at Donald Trump needs to show people he's got empathy for their current circumstances, he absolutely did not get over that bar.
I want to add one more thing to the immigration talk that we just talked about, and that is if you talk to the businesses out there, particularly in the food industry, and we're talking about grocery prices that are continue to go up and up and up, they need more employees. And the fact that our immigration system is totally broken right now, and he's shipping people out that are in jobs and they're not criminals, they're working and they're adding to our economy, just further blows up the whole inflation issue. And it's not going to go away until they get somebody with common sense making some policy decisions around here. Because as Ronald Reagan said, and he isn't my favorite president by a long shot, but as Ronald Reagan said, what's made this country a great country is our immigrants. And this president didn't read his history at all.
And the same goes for the construction industry, right? You want to talk about housing costs. That's one of the big concerns. We are going to see a huge,
Let me get your reaction to what the president said on this military dividend, because it almost seems like they needed one thing to announce here. And so I'll give you just a recap of what he said there. I mean, in the address, and Maritsa, you mentioned earlier that he was trying to get the numbers right. Is, first he was saying, 1,000 service members, 1 million service members. It was like, where's the president going with this? And ultimately what he announced was that reportedly the White House has plans to issue checks in the amount of $1,776 before the holidays to every member of the military. Now, I think based on what the president was saying, that money is coming from the money that's been made in tariffs, and that they intend to give that to service members before Christmas. Look, I'm not going to deny that. I'm sure there's service members who were watching who thought that's great. I would love to get that check. But it did completely reek of desperation that the president has spent the past few weeks trying to figure out, where are we going to spend some of this tariff money to buy down all of the political criticism we're getting about these price increases. And so, to put it very bluntly, Donald Trump has increased prices on all Americans, has made some money because of those taxes, and is now taking that money that single mothers are having to spend extra on goods at the grocery store and then just redistributing that to a certain category. He's decided the military. It strikes me as a lifelong conservative that's just socialism.
Well,
it's the thing he rails against.
Well, Miles, look at the numbers, right? So if he's going to give $1,776 to all military service members, that is 1,450,000 military service members, right? So you do the math, that's $2.5 billion. And you said we still don't know what money has been raised by the tariffs, right? So suppose he hasn't raised $2.5 billion from the tariffs. Miles, Senator Maritsa, where is that money coming from?
It's coming from our kids. Miles will tell you that. It's going to the national debt. And that's the problem right now. The good old conservative party that used to be the Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. This guy spends money like nobody I've ever seen before. He's not only trying to buy off the service members, he's trying to buy off farmers. He's not only trying to buy off farmers, he tried to buy off Argentina, and they don't even vote for him. It's crazy. It's nuts.
Well, and he did say one of Senator Tester's favorite lines lately about health insurance, that he doesn't want to give the health insurance companies the money. He wants to give it to the people so they can buy their own health insurance. Well, who do they buy health insurance from?
40 billion to Argentina, taking control of Intel, redistributing wealth, Miles, but I am the alleged Muslim Marxist socialist who will take over America.
I certainly watched the president's. I watched his address, Waj, and I became more and more worried about having you on the program. I thought he's going to be a huge danger to this conversation. The president has told me you're probably the most dangerous thing in America.
Oh, I mean, right now, Fox is obsessed with me. Yes, the right-wing media is obsessed with me.
The only thing that could make you more dangerous right now, Waj, is if you told us you have been playing women's sports. I mean, that in your mind, that would make you an enemy of the state.
I did something. I don't know if I married a female athlete, so I don't know who ran in Florida. So it is. Look, they're desperate, and you know, I do want to say this though before I head out real quick. And thank you so much for inviting me. I got to go to someone else. This is the desperation that I saw. I saw a desperate man flailing. I saw a weak man. I saw a man trying to project strength. I saw a man who looked like he had snorted Adderall or cocaine, I don't know, allegedly, shouting at the camera, trying to convince the world of his deluded worldview, lie upon lie. And if indeed he was this strong, he wouldn't have done this address. And if indeed they had any ideas, they would have introduced them. They have nothing new. So what he ended on with, and Miles, you and I have talked about this, and this is our fear. And I don't want to end on a terrifying note. I know you all will uplift us. But a desperate man like Donald Trump is a cornered New York City sewer rat. No disrespect to sewer rats. And he is a man who will chew through anything and everyone to stay alive. And this is a man now looking for a ragstack fire. They tried to do one in the summer with immigrants. They tried to do one after Charlie Kirk's murder. They tried to do one after the Afghan shooter. And now they've tried to do one after the Bondi Beach shooting, right? And with Venezuela and drug traffickers and, the Muslim and extremists, I fear that this man, when he runs out of all other ideas and he's desperate, my fear remains that I shared with you, Miles, based upon what I've heard from my own ears, the evidence of my eyes and ears of what Stephen Miller has said and Pam Bondi said and Donald Trump has said, is this is a man, if he truly gets his war with Venezuela, that gives Stephen Miller access to the Alien Enemies Act. That allows them to do the Insurrection Act. And like I said before, if we don't keep our eyes wide open, I still fear for him going all in with martial law. If you think I'm out of pocket, let me know.
I do not think you are at all, my friend. Waj Ali, no one like you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Senator.
And I have great appreciation for your Star Wars Legos behind you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Big props.
This is for the children. It's for the children. Yes.
I have vintage Disneyland here, so big fan.
For the kids. Thank you all.
You're the man, Wash. Thank you. Just a few more questions, Senator and Maritsa, to close us out here. I mean, I want to pick up on what Waj was just saying on the national security front, because when the president announced this paycheck to military service members, to me, it sounded like, yes, a desperate attempt to show that something's coming from the tariffs, but there was a bigger overlay here, which is everything that's happening with Venezuela, everything that's happening with the illegal boat strikes. It feels like the president is panicked that he is losing support in the United States military. And you saw that with his intense reaction, Senator Tester, to some of your former colleagues who came forward a few weeks ago and warned about illegal orders. And Donald Trump responded by saying they were guilty of sedition. Mark Kelly is now under investigation by the Pentagon. The other 5 lawmakers are under investigation by the FBI. The president insinuated they should be hung. I mean, it was an extraordinary, unprecedented overreaction that I think showed anyone, even a layman on these issues, wow, Donald Trump must be very concerned that he's issuing illegal orders and people are going to report out those illegal orders. What do you both make of that?
I think you're spot on, Miles. I mean, I think a normal president would have not taken offense to that at all. But he took incredible offense to it. In fact, Mark Kelly being under investigation is like, you know, it's like investigating Mr. Clean, for God's sakes. I mean, this guy is white as anybody you've ever seen as far as pureness.
Wait, is that a joke about his hair?
No, he doesn't have any, does he?
Well, neither does Mr. Clean.
Okay. Right. What I'm saying is this guy's a Boy Scout. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. But yet they're going to go after him. And I tell you, I know Mark Kelly well enough that he ain't going to take this laying down. He's very proud of his service to this country and how he acted in his role as a service member to this country. And he's read the Constitution, and that's why I wanted to read it back to some people who claim to know it and love it, but have never read it. So I think you're absolutely right. Just let me add one more thing to all this, because I just got to tell you, I didn't get a chance to see it because we didn't have any power. Okay. Sounds weird, but it's a fact. Wind's been blowing 70, 80 miles an hour today, and the power finally went out. But when I text Maritsa, I called her and I said, I can be on. I said, did he talk about Venezuela? And she said, no. And I went, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because we're not going to go to a war and put young men and women's lives on the line and this country's reputation on the line because of the whim of a president. And I think that's the good thing that came out of this speech, I guess, unless there will be an announcement tomorrow that we're going to war with Venezuela. Because quite frankly, and I've said this before, Miles, we said it when you were on our Grounded podcast, and we've talked about it before. Congress doesn't seem to be anywhere. They're just, he can do whatever the hell he wants. It's okay. And they even say that. I heard a senator from Indiana say this last weekend, look, I won because of Donald Trump, and whatever he does, I'm going to endorse. That's what I paraphrase, but that's what he said. And that's not why you're elected to Congress. It isn't. It's to represent your constituents, not to some boss in Washington, D.C. And so,
to Mark Kelly point, I'll just say, so we had Mark Kelly on our show, Grounded, and we literally got off of our interview with him 10 minutes before that investigation was announced on Twitter X. And in that conversation that we had on our show, he said basically what you're alluding to, what Senator Tester's alluding to. If they're not doing illegal orders, the very simple thing to say is, hey, that is in the, the Uniform Military Code of Justice, and we don't need to worry about it because we're not doing that.
Well, I'll make a plug for this right now, and I think our producer probably has the assets. We actually just announced today that we are launching a nationwide campaign to make U.S. service members aware of their rights, aware of their responsibilities, and to take that next step from what Senator Kelly and Senator Slotkin did by saying, and we're going to make sure you have a lawyer if you need a lawyer. It's not enough I commend them for saying that service members should be aware of illegal orders, but we also need to be able to say, and you know what, if you're caught in a difficult decision, if you're being told to do something illegal, you don't have to feel like it's hopeless. There are confidential reporting mechanisms, pro bono legal resources, and we've teamed up with an organization called Whistleblower Aid to make sure that service members are aware of those resources and have access to them. So actually today, I don't know if we have the graphic of the billboard, we have put up billboards around U.S. Southern Command and U.S. Special Operations Command down in Florida so that people know they have those resources, so that military personnel can access a lawyer if they need one to figure out whether an order has been lawful or is a manifestly illegal order. Now, and that's important for folks to be able to have access to those resources. I think one of those U.S. service members is calling Senator Tester right now.
Maybe. We've had a senator call on when we've been on.
Yeah, we gave out his phone number as the hotline. If you're going to report a manifestly illegal order, just call this phone number. Senator, you mentioned Venezuela, and I do think that was the biggest thing that was, he briefly mentioned it, but it was basically left out of these remarks. And a lot of people were worried that tonight the president of the United States was going to announce a war. Just shows you the crazy times we are living in, that is a surprise if the president is or isn't going to announce a war. I want to play a clip of another one of your former colleagues, Senator Duckworth, who was talking about that issue today.
Joining us, Illinois Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth. Duckworth is a member of both the Armed Services and the Foreign Affairs Committees. Thank you very much for joining us, Senator. Can you give us a rundown on what you heard today?
Well, I heard a lot of chest thumping, but not a lot of answers to the questions that I still have. And I would have to agree with the discussion you're having right now, which is I think the president is trying to lead us into yet another forever war that Americans don't want. If this is justifiable, then come to Congress. We have the power to declare a war. Come to us and ask for an authorization for use of military force. The fact of the matter is they're not doing that. And if they truly were going to go after drug traffickers, then the president would not have pardoned the former president of Honduras who trafficked over 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. So what exactly is he trying to do here?
Senator, what does it mean that we're a week before Christmas in the United States and we don't know if the president of the United States is going to take us into a war or not?
Well, I mean, it shows you how weak Congress is. I mean, it just Tammy Duckworth, Senator Duckworth is absolutely 100% correct in her assessment. And I think if you take a look at what the president's done in Central America and around Venezuela, you've got to ask yourself what's the long game here, because I think it could be very, very dangerous, and I think it could be another forever war. And I think that taking our eyes off of China and Russia, which is absolutely what we've done since he's been in office, is a huge mistake. And I think most people that know anything about the challenges we have in this world will tell you that. And so I think, Congress needs to do what the Constitution tells the Article 1 legislative branch to do and live up to their responsibilities in the Constitution. And one of those responsibilities, by the way, is whether we're going to go to war or not. And if the president wants to go to war, put it up for a vote, see how the people vote, and go from there. But Congress has been AWOL, no pun intended whatsoever. They were supposed to authorize tariffs. They haven't. They've given that right to the administration for no reason whatsoever. And a lot of other things on holding people accountable and having hearings and doing due process. And the list is long, Miles. You know that. We've been living this for the last 11 months. And we can see where Congress just simply hasn't been there. But Senator Duckworth is 100% correct. If he wants to go to war, then he needs to go through Congress.
Well, I also think it's remarkable, you mentioned the tariffs, that the Supreme Court is considering right now the lawfulness of those tariffs. Donald Trump just announced tonight he's going to give billions of dollars from those tariffs to U.S. service members. There's a very, very good chance, based on those oral arguments, that the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs, which means, as you already said, Senator Tester, that money is not coming from the tariffs. It's just coming from the debt. It's coming from future generations. So the president is giving out payoffs, basically, to U.S. service members to like him or try to get them to like him. And he's just buying it down from the debt. He's using the credit card if those tariffs get struck down.
Yeah, no, 100% correct. And then the question becomes, Miles, does that mean that money has to be paid back? I believe it does. If those tariffs struck down, doesn't that money have to go back where it came from because it was collected illegally?
It will,
well,
and
it will be.
There
are already lawsuits. Costco is
Yep.
one of many businesses, the most prominent maybe, that has filed a lawsuit for
And
all
then-
the money that they lost.
Here's another question for you. What about those Main Street businesses that have already gone broke, that don't have the money to hire a lawyer, that the tariffs put them out of business? And there's a lot of those too. So the question is, this isn't going to end right away, at least from my perspective. I don't know if the Supreme Court is going to bail him out or not. But the truth is, when it comes to writing out checks, and it doesn't matter if it's the service members or the farmers or some foreign country, because you've got investments in it, all that's going on the debt of the kids.
Yeah. I mean, look, another question here is, where does the single mother in LaPorte, Indiana go to get all the money back that she was overcharged in goods that she was buying at the grocery store?
Consumers too, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. I want to end on this extraordinary side-by-side that we have of Donald Trump tonight talking about prices are being lowered. It's the best economy ever. He's bragging, and things that Donald Trump has been saying as recently as this week that he's prioritizing as president. He was talking about his ballroom the other night, and I want you both to take a listen to that clip and get your reaction on the other end.
I think it'll be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. But I said, who else but in our country would sue to stop a $400 million beautiful ballroom that people have been after for the White House? The White House has wanted a ballroom for 150 years.
The president, by the way, has now doubled the cost of the ballroom. The previously $200 million ballroom he's obsessed with is now, according to his words, $400 million. He's being sued about that. That's what he's referencing, is the National Historic Trust suing him about building that. But, Maritsa, I want to start with you on this one. You cannot invent a worse side-by-side for this man when people are hurting economically, when his poll numbers are in the absolute gutter, for him to be talking over and over about this expensive gilded ballroom that he wants to build on the White House grounds.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that. It's definitely a let them eat cake moment, right? And then also the I don't know what we're going to call this, the decor that continues to show up. We didn't even talk about this outside the White House, the new plaques that were put up underneath the photos of former presidents, slamming President Biden, slamming President Obama. I mean, that's money that's being used. And then he goes on and into that Pennsylvania rally to talk about how we don't need so many pencils for our kids. And you want to talk about $1,776. Guess what? That is not going to go very far for a family. $1,700 does not go very far anymore for a family. And we're going to talk about all of this money into a ballroom, all of this money into plaques, all of this money into the gilded whatever he's doing to the White House. So yeah, it's not, it doesn't really scream, what was the word we were looking for earlier? Compassion? Doesn't scream compassion and or even a basic understanding of what it's actually like. And there are so many folks out there, the Netflix miniseries of this book by this Missoula author did a really, really, really great job of trying to visualize the stress that families are under when they are down to their last dollar. And they had kind of the bank ledger in the corner of the screen. And every time something happened, it would go down and go down and go down. And you could feel the stress. And that's what people are up against right now. That is what people are trying to figure out, how they're going to get gas to get to their jobs, how they're going to pay for presents for their kids for this holiday season, how they're going to afford to keep their lights on. It just, you can't compare the two.
Well, and I will add on the 1776 number. It's interesting. There have been a number of studies economically that have shown that price increases, and not just under Donald Trump, but the past few years, price increases for some families have increased their cost of living $7,000 to $8,000 a year. $7,000 to $8,000 a year, and then Donald Trump is just slapping taxes on goods, and then says, "But here's $1,700. Well, what do I do about all that money that I've lost from these price increases. This only makes the smallest dent. Senator, on the ballroom piece, on what Maritsa was saying about the gilded lettering that's being added all over the White House and new plaques putting up, the president daily seems to be focused on retrofitting his house. While
The people's
Americans
house.
That's right. While Americans' home prices are going down, the value in their homes is going down, and the prices they're having to pay for everything else are skyrocketing.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, I look at Miles, I look at Maritsa, I look at people, and I say, so what makes them do what they do? And I've got to tell you, it's obvious that Donald Trump's pretty damn insecure. Otherwise, why would you put the plaques up of your predecessor, bad-mouthing the predecessor people in the office of the presidency of the United States, the highest office in the world, and then you take about and listen to him and see what he says are his priorities. And this ballroom is a priority, for God's sakes, for all the reasons you just said, Miles. The fact that the housing values are dropping and affordability is going through the ceiling. People can't afford to buy stuff and pay for basic expenses. But yet, the ballroom is something that the country's wanted for 155 years. No. Give me a break. It's something that he's wanted and that his rich buddies have wanted, maybe. But the truth is, the country is never once did we get a letter in my Senate office saying, you ought to carry a bill to make sure that there's a ballroom on the White House, because we need a ballroom in this country, because it really does show what this country's about. It's just, I just don't understand the whole addictive personality stuff that Susie Wiles talked about in that interview she gave. Maybe that is it, and maybe I just can't figure it out because I haven't been around enough addicted personalities in my lifetime. But maybe that's the challenge. Maybe the challenge is this guy. Maybe he's not on top dead center. You know what I mean? Let's just put it that way. And
well, look, I when I saw that Susie Wiles had given them that quote, that he has the personality of an alcoholic, and we all know that Donald Trump's a teetotaler. He doesn't drink. But I thought, he is very much drunk on power. And I don't say that as a talking point. He displays all of the alcoholic tendencies when it comes to power. He obsesses over it. He lies about it. He builds his whole day around these little moments where he gets a dopamine hit by exercising authority over someone else. I mean, it is definitionally the type of thing that the founders were worried about, is a person of this deficient character. And I think that we saw that tonight. We saw that person in a very unusual and stunted and bizarre presidential address being his true self in front of the country.
Let me ask you something, Miles, because I actually thought about this a fair amount this afternoon. And do you think this helps? Even among his MAGA base, do you think this helps have him come out and talk like this when it really is a removal from reality?
I'm interested, Maritsa, in your response too, but I would say, look, I think this was counterproductive in every single way. In fact, I cannot think of the audience, folks that like the president, folks that hate the president, who got anything out of this, other than the only audience would be a military service member who's surprised to find out that they're getting a check as part of this gimmick of the president spending tariff money. That is the only audience that watched this and thought, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. I'll take that money. But
here's
anybody
the thing
else?
about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in one of my long, in-depth investigative reporting pieces was about junior enlisted service members who don't qualify for SNAP because on paper they make too much money because they get housing allowances. And every single week, these families line up at food banks on their bases across the country for bags of potatoes and flour and dried milk because they cannot afford to put food on the table for their family. So $1,700, yeah, I think that might be a nice surprise, but it doesn't put a dent in what some of these military families are up against. And let me just mention, there have been fixes proposed in Congress, and I stormed Senator Tester's office to ask him about this a couple of times. There have been proposed fixes. Lisa Murkowski was on one of them. Tammy Duckworth was a co-sponsor of one of these, and it never gets through. So if you care about the military families, you need to make some of these institutional fixes that actually help their lives long term, instead of this one cash infusion that doesn't actually give them any significant relief.
Well, and what's not lost on virtually every American who was watching the address tonight is that the president didn't give an answer on healthcare, didn't give a real solution, as Republicans have stonewalled, refused to fix the subsidies issue, and had to be forced today into voting on it because there was an effort in the House to try to force a discharge petition on the vote to try to extend those subsidies. But unfortunately, because of the way that arcane congressional rules work, we're not going to get that vote until the new year. So most Americans, despite whatever Donald Trump said exuberantly about the American economy, are going to go into the holidays knowing their prices are going up across the board on the biggest expenses they have. And for a lot of families in this country, their health care is the most expensive thing they pay every month. It's more expensive than their cars. It's more expensive than a lot of their homes and apartments. And that figure is going up. And the president did not offer a solution to that tonight.
No. The other thing that I would point out is that from his perspective, the economy probably is doing pretty well, because it's doing pretty well for the folks who got a lot of dough. It is doing pretty well. But for the folks who are working for a living, trying to make ends meet, not so much.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, a fitting note for us to end on. Former Senator Jon Tester, grateful that you could join us and that the power came back on there out in the countryside. It sounds like you've got whipping cold winds out there. It's going to be a tough day on the farm tomorrow, I'm sure. It's great to see you as always, sir. Maritsa, wonderful to see you. Award-winning American broadcast journalist. You know her from NBC News. You know her from Scripps News. Fantastic to be with you. And I look forward to catching up with both of you very soon.
You bet,
Thanks
Miles.
for having us.
Thanks for being with us. And folks, if you joined us tonight for this special edition of Defiance Daily, you probably saw what I would characterize as one of the worst presidential addresses that I have ever seen, actually. We talked about it with a number of guests tonight. It was stunted. It was strange. But it wasn't just the way that the president spoke tonight. It wasn't just his affect. It was what the president spoke about. It was his effort in a speech, verifiably littered with lies, to try to convince the American people that they are better off than they actually are. And by all assessments, at least so far, it does not seem like the president stuck the landing in trying to convince the American people that everything, including prices, in his words, are, quote, falling rapidly. Nobody can believe what's going on. It's so great. I think that's the quote that will stick out tomorrow. Nobody can believe what's going on. The president means that in a good way. Most Americans feel that in another way. I'll close by just noting one thing again when it comes to military service members. I think Maritsa hit the nail on the head that those checks that Donald Trump is trying to issue to service members, people are going to see through those. First of all, that amount of money is not going to fix the damage that most service members have experienced to their pocketbooks and to their bank accounts this year and in previous years. But also, it will not work to try to buy people off. People, by the way, the president has been trying to silence. Make no mistake. I worked for this man in the first Trump administration. I saw his disregard for U.S. service members. When people like John Kelly say that he referred to fallen soldiers as suckers and losers, those are not made-up things. That is who Donald Trump is. He does not have deep and abiding regard for U.S. service members. And if he did, he would not have done what he did last month in threatening a U.S. service member, a sitting United States Senator, Mark Kelly, with court-martial, accusing him of sedition for the crime of warning people in the military not to commit crimes, for merely restating the law. And I believe very firmly that's one of the reasons tonight Donald Trump is trying to cut checks to members of the military, is he is very, very worried. He is worried because members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, for the first time so far in this administration, are coming together to criticize this administration's handling of the United States military, especially as it relates to these boat strikes in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. There is a growing sense in Washington that these strikes are illegal and that there may have been the commission of war crimes, or as other legal experts have noted, just the commission of the crime of murder. The chorus of voices criticizing the administration around this issue is growing, and the White House is panicking. And again, I strongly suspect, that's one of the reasons that tonight Donald Trump wanted to cut checks to members of the military. If you haven't, I would urge you to go to defiance.org/troops and take a look at ways that you can help out U.S. service members who are concerned about being issued unlawful orders. Now, I want to make something very clear about this campaign. We are working to raise awareness in military communities all around the country of the rights and responsibilities that service members have. This is not an effort to get people to defy lawful orders. It's not an effort to confuse people about their rights. It's an effort to make sure our service members know their rights. Because in my view, the President of the United States does not have their back, does not want them to know what their rights are, wants to threaten them with court-martial if they would dare to expose misconduct. That is wrong. That is un-American. That is not what a commander-in-chief should do. If a member of the military is worried that they have been issued an illegal order, they should have access to lawful and confidential reporting mechanisms to disclose that. This administration wants to shut off those pathways. And so it's incumbent on all Americans to send a message to members of the military: we have your backs. We have your backs, and we will help you get access to the independent legal advice you need, whether it's to help you understand that an order is indeed lawful and that you should comply with it, or to help you understand whether you've been on the receiving end of a manifestly illegal order. We should not let the men and women in uniform who serve this country, who've given everything, twist in the wind in the face of growing controversy in Washington, controversy that could spill out of the Beltway and ruin their lives if they are intimidated away from getting that advice. So take a look at defiance.org/troops at that campaign. See if there are ways you can help us reach more service members around the country. Promote it on social media. You are welcome also to contribute to that campaign. 100% of the proceeds will go towards making service members aware of their rights and supporting them with independent legal resources. Very proud of the group that we're partnering with for this, whistleblower.aid.org. They have supported whistleblowers in some of the most high-profile cases in the past 10 years. In the private sector, in the public sector, and have one of the best and broadest legal networks to go support members of the United States military who may be on the receiving end of those orders. So last thing I'll note is that campaign just went live today in Florida around U.S. Southern Command and U.S. Special Operations Command to go reach service members. And we're hoping to expand that to other places nationwide to make sure, again, men and women in uniform know their rights and have access to a lawyer if they need it. Thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Defiance Daily, listening to the presidential address tonight. If you do not follow us on social media on all platforms, you can find us at defiance.org and make sure to subscribe. This has been a special edition. Stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. Thank you for joining.